Well, hello, everybody. I'm Hal,
And I'm Melanie.
and we want to welcome you to another episode of Making Biblical Family Life Practical. And we have been talking about dealing with stressful situations.
And in the last segment, we're talking about how do we deal with stressful situations in our own heart attitudes.
Uh-huh.
But let's talk about how do we help our kids through stressful situations, because this has been a year and a half of stressful situations, and it doesn't look like it's ending anytime soon.
Have you been under stress? I mean, we're
Yes.
happily married and we've got wonderful kids, and life is
It's different.
still stressful.
It's still different.
Still there's stress.
Well, we
Yes.
can manage to pull stress out of anything, Hal.
Yeah.
I remember talking to a doctor one time, and he's like, would you say that your life has a lot of stress, or do you think maybe you could reduce your stress? And I'm like, I just laughed, and I said, I am super happy, but stress is my middle name.
Oh gosh, our doctor felt like for a while like our family was like in-service training for all of his medical staff there. It's like
so much craziness.
it's like one thing or another. Say, oh, they need a typhoid vaccine. Well, let's talk about typhoid vaccines this week.
Yeah.
So
But
uh-huh.
the whole world
Mm-hmm.
has been going through stress in the past year and a half. I don't think anybody has been unaffected.
I don't think so either. I don't think so at all. And
it's taking a toll on our kids.
And, it's going to be different for different families. I mean, a lot of families are dealing with the disruption of schools being closed and doing online education with all of its pitfalls. And
Others are facing loss of jobs, maybe because of their convictions.
Mm-hmm.
One of our friends posted something really disturbing. She lives in Ontario, and about how their government is changing things there, and it's going to really affect their life.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody has different stresses.
Right.
Even when it's mostly all the same cause, like the pandemic, it affects everyone in different ways.
Well, one of the things that we have had a lot of interesting times throughout our lives, and one of the decisions we made early on, which I think has been proven wise over and over again, is you can only protect your kids so much. And it's better to discuss your situation with your kids than to try to keep them bottled up and in the dark. Ooh.
Okay, so we didn't script this beforehand.
Nope.
And I'm sitting here thinking this, and Hal's saying it. It's very weird.
Well, okay, see, that's being one-minded. Okay, we're being because I mean, we've seen over. All right.
Are you
like
sure you're not telepathic?
Wee. Yeah. Okay. All right. So like your friend who had multiple miscarriages.
Yes. And at one point, one of her young teens came to me and said, Mrs. Young, tell me the truth. Does my mama have cancer? And I said, what? She said, Mom is going to the doctor all the time, and she seems really nervous and anxious, and all of us kids are convinced she has cancer. No, she was pregnant, but they didn't want to tell the kids because they had a bunch of early miscarriages, and they didn't want to upset the kids. Kids were already upset. Our kids are not ignorant. They know us very well, and they know when we're upset and stressed. Mm-hmm. And so our policy has been to be honest with our kids, to be straightforward. So, guys, this is the situation.
And one of our friends was quoting Corrie ten Boom with that illustration that she asked her father a really awkward question as a child, and he told her, well, look, you carry my suitcase off the train, and she said, it's too heavy. And he said, there's certain knowledge that's too heavy for you to carry. There's a way to discuss things that's appropriate for your teens, which isn't appropriate for your 5-year-old.
Well, how you tell them makes a big difference.
Right.
When you had cancer, I did not gather the kids around and say, kids, Dad has cancer and he's likely going to die. Although that's pretty much what the doctor told us.
Well, it was not it wasn't an open and shut case, was it?
No, I said, kids, Dad is very sick. He has cancer. I explained what that was. And I said, and this is how it's going to affect our lives.
Right.
Because that's what your kids want to know.
Yeah.
They want to know, how is this going to affect them? And I think we kind of forget that as parents because our minds, we've got all this in our head. We know what it means to have cancer.
Right.
We know, you go get chemo and you're going to be sick, and but our kids have no idea what that means. That was one of the hardest things for me when my father died. Is just not knowing what was going to happen. I didn't know, would we keep living in the same place?
Yeah.
Would we still be a family? What would the holidays look like? Who would
Right.
walk me down the aisle when I got married?
And some
And
of those things you some of those things maybe you can't discuss right yet because you don't know yourself.
no, but it would have helped me a lot if someone had recognized I was thinking about all that stuff and had encouraged me that it was going to be okay and that we would always be a family. Now, that's an
Right.
extreme situation,
Right.
but all these things are running through our kids' heads, and so we need to say, okay, this is how it's going to affect our family, and we need to point them to God.
Right. And we need to recognize too that some of our kids are open books. We've had a couple that were just like if a thought was on their mind, they had expressed it already.
It's
And there was others who have kept everything bottled up. Same family, same kids, same raising, but they're just different personalities. And we need to be careful to be sensitive to that and to think, okay,
just because they're not
this is
talking does not mean everything's okay.
right. That's absolutely true. And to recognize that if you've got one who is Mr. Too Much Information, as you discuss it with him in front of the siblings, maybe the quiet ones are getting what they need by overhearing it. We've seen that too, but you need to be sensitive to the child that's quiet and self-contained and they don't seem to be reacting to it. You don't need to
Yeah.
interrogate them, but just talk with them and try to feel them out.
So when you're going through stressful situations, you want to be honest with your kids. You got to point them to the Lord, just like the verses we shared in the previous segment. That all things work together for those who love God.
Yes.
That no, not a hair falls from our head, but that the Lord knows it.
Mm-hmm.
We point them to the Lord and His sovereign will, and that He loves us and His care for us.
Right.
We answer their questions, but there's kind of 3 stages of childhood that you kind of need to deal with differently.
Right.
Our young children need to be reassured that it's going to be okay and that mom and dad have got this.
And our older kids need to be brought in kind of as adults in training to say, look, we need you to pick up some responsibility around here because, maybe your mom's going to be sick and she won't be able to do as much housework, or maybe dad's going to be really busy looking for a new job, or, we're going to have to figure out how we're going to carpool because the car's in the shop, or whatever it is. The teenagers, can really step up to the plate. This makes a big difference for them.
And the Lord can really use it in their lives. When you had cancer,
Yeah.
it brought one of our boys to the Lord,
Yeah.
who had been so resistant, and it brought him to Jesus. And to see what it did in his life was beautiful and incredible.
And when we had to spend so much time in the hospital with our baby that had a heart condition, that our child, who was very happy-go-lucky and very flippant about his schoolwork,
I had to drag him through school, let's be honest.
suddenly realized, hey, if it's going to happen, I've got to take responsibility. And it totally changed his attitude and his actions toward his schoolwork.
It really did. Now
So-
he's a college graduate.
So yeah,
But let's talk a minute about those middle kids before we go.
so important.
Because the middle kids, the middle schoolers, are the ones that are kind of really in danger here. The older kids know that how they can help and to step up to the plate.
Yeah.
The younger kids just need reassurance, but those middle kids, they're kind of between. They're emotional wrecks. As we talk about in our book No Longer Little, their emotions are all over the place because they're having extreme variations of hormones.
And they are smart enough and perceptive enough to tell
know there's a problem.
There's a problem here, and they so much want to be part of the adult solution, and yet, they can't drive yet. They don't have experience to do different
They're
things.
forgetful and adult.
There's a lot that they cannot do, even though they yearn to be able to do it.
It can really help this age kid if you give them some of the reassurance of the young children, but also some of the information of the older children, and get them helping as much as they can. I remember one of our kids, and he was our son who was really dyslexic.
Yeah.
So it was even more limited the kind of things he could do without me.
Right.
But I remember in that year of great tribulation when the baby was so sick and you had cancer,
Right.
I had to make a lot of copies of financial documents to ask for financial aid from the hospital. And out of desperation, I grabbed him and I said, look, can I show you how to scan this?
Yeah.
And would you scan this? I think he was only like 10 or 11.
Right.
And would you just scan all these for me? He stood there for 2 hours scanning. And it didn't look tired. He looked relieved because he'd been able to do something to really help. And so,
And there's a lot of times when the best thing we can do for those around us is to allow them to help. I
right.
remember when there was a death in the family when I was growing up that, somebody desperately wanted to do something, and people had already brought meals, people had already done a lot of the things. And I just pulled something out of my hat. I said, could you show me how to do such and such, something to cook in the kitchen. And she was so relieved. But it says in Galatians that we are to bear one another's burdens and thus fulfill the law of Christ. And if we don't share our burdens with other people, they can't fulfill that commandment. And so it's okay to say, hey, can you help me with this? Even if you think, I can take care of this.
And let me encourage you that your middle schools are a lot more capable than you think. Our 12-year-old is in there making homemade meatballs. Your middle schoolers are a lot more capable than you think. If you don't know, get our book No Longer Little. We'll talk to you about that.
Yes.
But before we go, Hal, we need to talk about the release. When stressful times are over is a time of danger for your family.
Let's talk about that after we hear from our sponsor.
Okay.
Okay. So hang on for just a moment.
Where are you, men of courage?
From Sherwood Pictures and the Kendrick Brothers comes Courageous Legacy.
I want to know what God expects of me. I don't feel like I started well. I want to finish well.
Celebrating 10 years of impact on fathers and families. Now remastered in 4K, including a new ending and bonus scenes.
I believe every father should step up and answer the call and say, I will. I will.
Courageous Legacy. Rated PG-13. Some material may be inappropriate for children under 13. In theaters September 24th.
Okay, so we've taken our family through a time of great stress, and we've all pulled together as a team, and finally we come out of that dark tunnel, and we're back in the sunshine.
And everybody falls apart. Because they've been buttoned up, holding it together, being brave during whatever crisis.
My grandmother had a little plaque that she kept back in the office, the place where she worked, that says, when the rush is over, I'm going to have a nervous breakdown. I've worked for it. I deserve it. Nobody's going to deprive me of it. And that is, that is so much human nature, isn't it?
I remember when our youngest was released from ICU. And on the way home, I had absolute hysterics.
Oh, mercy. I can't forget that. Yeah, and you would, all the nurses and the doctors,
I don't think I shed a tear the whole time she was in the hospital.
They said, man, she is a rock. She is informed. She's advocating for this child. She is on the spot. Everybody was just admiring your strength and your character. And it was like, we got 5 minutes away from the hospital and you came unhinged.
I lost it, y'all.
Yeah, golly. Blubbering mess.
mess.
And I said, do we need to pull over? You said, no, just keep driving. It's like, ooh, what's going on?
What was going on is I could let go of that stern, tough hold that I had to do to make sure that what needed to happen, Hal. And if an adult does that, we should not be surprised when our kids do. So frequently when the stress lets up, our teenagers act like toddlers. And our younger kids who've been so good through all this start bickering and fighting, and it feels like everything falls apart. Even couples can start arguing and bickering.
Well, haven't we all known people who had a child with a terminal illness and the whole family pulled together and they were so strong, and the illness is over, and whether the child has gone to the Lord or if the child is recovering or whatever, when the stress is off, and the couple breaks up. And you think, you stayed together for the sake of the child. Now the child is healthy or the situation's resolved, and now you're going to fall apart. Now you're going to be short with each other.
But it doesn't have to be that way. We just need to be aware, and we need to give each other lots of grace. Maybe
and just
take
recognize,
some time off.
Yes.
Take some time off school. Watch some movies together. Go swimming together. Go on a hike together. Take time off. Relax. Unwind. Overlook the babyishness of people who have been acting like adults,
Even the adults.
yes,
Yes.
and give each other love and grace, because
Just plan on it. Just schedule it. Just to say, hey, when we're released from the hospital, or when we got the new job underway, or whatever, don't say, okay, now we're back to normal, because you aren't.
no,
You got to ease back into normal at that point.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, good advice there. Very good advice. All right, so we've been talking about dealing with stressful situations, dealing with it in our own hearts, and helping our children and our families to negotiate through it.
and it can. And I used to worry a lot. We've had a lot of different stressful situations. I used to worry a lot how and the effect it was having on our children. I felt like it's just not fair that our kids have to go through this, that they have to bear so much responsibility. But now that those kids are adults, I look at it and I see the good fruit that God brought about. Because I was on bed rest, my kids learned responsibility. Because they knew sickness in our family, they learned compassion.
Right.
They learned the character things that God wanted them to learn.
Well, isn't it James that says that we should rejoice when we go through trials, because those trials provoke all sorts of godly fruit, all sorts of perseverance and faith and other things. I can't quote it off the top of my head, but you know the verse I'm talking about. We'll put it in the show notes. But at any rate, we've been talking about all of that. If you've got a topic you'd like for us to talk about, how about leave us a message on our listener response line? You can find that at 919-295-0321. And just leave us a message, and we'll see if we can get that onto the program for you, okay? Again, that's 919-295-0321.
And if your kids need help with gratitude, go grab Pollyanna and its sequel. Pollyanna Grows Up at our website at raisingrealmen.com
Right.
/shop. Hit audiobooks and you'll find it there. It's great for helping your kids through stressful times. And even our teenage boys loved it.
Right. Okay, so look, we appreciate your time with us and hope that it's been helpful and encouraging to you. And until next time, I'm Hal.
And I'm Melanie.
Thanks for joining us, okay?
Bye, y'all.
You've been listening to Making Biblical Family Life Practical with Hal and Melanie Young. If you found this program interesting, challenging, and encouraging, why not join us on the web at halandmelanie.com. That's HALANDMELANIE.com. Or follow us on social media. You can find us on Facebook at Facebook/Hal and Melanie or Facebook.com/Raising Real Men. This program is a production of the Ultimate Homeschool Radio Network. Join us next week when we'll be back to talk about making biblical family life practical. Until then, thank you and God bless you for listening.